Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. In keeping with the conversation about First Amendment rights, we have joining us here in just a moment Nicky Neily. And we're going to be chatting with her about the president's remarks at CPAC. So I know I've got a caller standing by, but before I do that, let me just at least get Nicky into the conversation. Nicky, good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'd appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to this conversation about the First Amendment issue and speech first. But before I do that, Gail in Pelletier is calling us because of a conversation I had just a few moments ago with Mr. Fa with the Pacific Legal Foundation. And Gail, good evening to you. Your thoughts, ma'am?
Yes. How are you tonight?
Doing well.
I'm originally from New York.
Uh-huh.
My father-in-law, 95 years old, attended the Stuyvesant High School in New York City. There was criteria in order to be admitted to that school, along with the other Bronx High School of Science, along with some outstanding schools. But I think this issue has come along with the whole philosophy of, everyone gets a participation award.
Right.
You want to play?
Yep.
Fine. There's no challenge. There's no need to win. There's no need to strive for better. Everybody is supposedly equalized, and that's the philosophy that's coming across on the left at this time in our United States.
That, and again, I go back to the optics, and Nicky Neily is listening into the conversation. Nicky, before you joined us, we were chatting with Wen Fa. He's an attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation in a dispute with Mayor de Blasio related to several high-performing schools in New York City, one of them being the Stuyvesant High School there that Gail is referencing, in which the school is restricted on the number of, and I have to use the word Asian, but I would say folks of Asian descent who are successful academically and are populating these schools. And because these schools don't have the same optics as the rest of New York City, the mayor has decided that, well, no, we've got to restrict the applications and not base it on their abilities and merits. So, Gail, that's an interesting observation. Yes, part of it is this issue of everybody getting a participation trophy. But the other aspect of it is the mayor and other officials are pandering for votes. And so what they're saying is, we want all of our institutions to look like you all, whoever you all is, so that you all will vote for me the next time we come around to an election. It has nothing to do with merit. That is one of the last institutions of meritocracy, and it's frightening. It's not necessarily going to last long, is the military. So to your point, I think you're partially correct, Gail. I think it is part of that. Everybody needs to feel good about themselves. But the other aspect of it is we have leaders, and we're seeing this in the Ivy League schools as well. They are pandering to a different constituency. But I think I appreciate.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that.
Thank you very much for the call.
I definitely think that is right on target. It's all about the votes now.
It is.
If you want to get into office, you need to attract, people that are maybe wouldn't qualify for some school like that. But you know what? There are other schools that can address students that have special needs, and not be coming into Stuyvesant.
But you're absolutely...
They don't qualify.
But you're absolutely right. Thanks for the call on that, Gail. Thank you for the attention. Appreciate that. All right. Moving to Nicky Neily. Of course, this is a First Amendment right issue as well, having to do with free speech. Nicky, one of the great frustrations I've had for quite some time is that colleges are supposedly institutions where you're promoting a diversity in thought and topics, and it's an issue where we promote intellectual integrity. But we're not seeing that in a lot of college campuses, and of course the president addressed that issue related to Berkeley. So let's talk about your organization, Free Speech, and tell us something about this.
Sure. So Speech First is pretty
First.
new. We actually had our birthday was last Thursday. It was February 28th, so we are 1 year old. And we defend students' rights on campus across the country, primarily through litigation. So we filed 2 lawsuits in our last year. I think most 1-year-olds have not filed 2 federal lawsuits, but I'm very proud of that. And so, yeah, it was interesting to see the president say that he was going to propose an executive order on this. I actually had lunch with Hayden Williams last week, and he still had this huge shiner because, people say, well, the public universities have to uphold the First Amendment, so, why do we need this? And I think, well, if they were actually doing it, then I wouldn't have had to sue them. These schools are not actually walking the walk. And so, we have yet to see what this executive order will look like.
Okay,
but I am cautiously optimistic.
But wait a second. Let's go back. I think Gail, just a moment ago, really touched on a topic associated with that. These institutions now are relegated to concerns of feelings. I've talked with a group of millennials every Thursday evening, and we've had this debate off and on now for, actually a couple of years. And it has to do with the feeling of being threatened, that folks are, they don't like the arguments being presented. They're threatened by those arguments. And I'm wondering, is this an issue going to Gail's topic as well, that what we're dealing with are are leaders who are sensitive to their constituents? They don't want their constituents to be discomforted, that sort of thing?
No, I mean, I think you're right. I think there is a little bit of pandering going on because, the reason that we are where we are on campus these days is it's kind of a perfect storm. There's not one reason for it, so there's not one way to fix it. I think some of it is, as she said, the participation trophies. The first time you're ever told no or you're wrong is when you get to college when you're 18. Yeah, that's going to be an existential crisis.
Ooh. I like that. It's an existential crisis. It's beyond imagination. Okay.
I think we have a failure of civics education. I think a lot of students don't understand how beautiful the First Amendment is, that free speech is one of the ways that disenfranchised groups throughout history have been able to get their message out, often the only way. I mean, you think about suffragists, abolitionists, Martin Luther King, and, fighting Jim Crow. This is the only way. That was considered hateful speech to challenge some of those laws in the books. And so if you don't understand that, and the first time you hear about the First Amendment is, well, this is why Richard Spencer can come to campus, yeah, you're going to hate that too. But I think, administrations are rotten too.
Well, no, don't even get me started on that one. Show me an industry that had almost double-digit increases financially during the Great Recession.
Yeah, that's the
Education
Institute has a staggering graph where you look at everything else, for inflation, and it's education and textbooks are the ones that are skyrocketing.
Don't even get me started. Okay. You're getting close to the vein there. I'll bleed all over the table. Look, here's the other aspect of this, and this is one of the concerns that I have, and that is we haven't taught people how to debate, how to consider diverse thoughts and arguments. You get to the situation where it's become the heckler's veto. So what happens is you deny the opportunity of the opposing side or the alternative side to express their opinion because, back to Gail's comment, it makes the recipients uncomfortable, so they want to deny that. But they have not learned to listen, but two, because we are now dealing with basically a riotous environment out there, they don't know how to even present their arguments. They shout and scream. So in some regards, I'm sympathetic to the administrations. They're dealing with even greater numbers of children, especially in the college environment. At least that's my argument, right or wrong.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And, it troubles me because you think a lot of these students, they want to be a voice for the voiceless. They want to stand up for the defenseless.
Right.
And that's noble. But avoiding, hiding, and silencing others is not the way to go about it. You think people like John Lewis didn't turn around and go home when they got called a nasty name. You need to develop a thicker skin. The world is not a kind place.
It's not.
So, we need resiliency.
Wait. The world is not a kind place.
People are going to face adversity. Students are going to face adversity when they get out of school. So you're really just delaying adulthood until 22, 23, and then what? And frankly, what happens on campus isn't staying on campus. And so now we see these students graduating and expecting accommodations in the workforce, in society, and that is not good for our country.
No, you go to where I want to go on this conversation. Can you stay with me for just a few more moments? I want to take a quick break. We have joining us Nicky Neily. She is the executive officer for an organization, Speech First, and I really appreciate her taking the time to be with us this afternoon. We're chatting with her about the aspects of First Amendments on the college campus. Why is that a concern? And especially one would expect in an environment that is promoting intellectual diversity. Well, apparently not. We'll get the details on that in a moment here with Nicky Neily, the organization Speech First. And Viewpoints on the talk station, FM 107 AM 1240. Before we were joined by Nicky Neily of Speech First, I just want to remind you about Advanced Office Solutions, the folks that are committed to making the business the one that you're building great or great again or greater, whichever. They're very ecumenical in that regard. They'll be happy to help you in any way they can. And of course, they are the linear dealer for our area, all linear services and products you can trust to Advanced Office Solutions. A local number, by the way, 393-1112. That's 393-1112. They're a family-owned business that is home ported here in our region. They understand the challenges that many of the businesses face here in coastal North Carolina. So if you want to improve your bottom line, improve your efficiencies and your customer relations, place to start is with Advanced Office Solutions. A local number again, 393-1112. That's 393-1112. Or go online to advosi.com. Integrity, reliability, and affordability. Advanced Office Solutions, a local supplier of linear products. They do business with you the way you want to do business with them. Joining us, Nicky Neily of Speech First this evening. And by the way, celebrating their first anniversary. Nicky, before I get to several of the court cases that are the cases that you're dealing with, I go back to my concern about the absence of intellectual diversity on college campuses. Is this also perpetrated by administrations, though they themselves are uncomfortable with anyone that challenges them, as I like to do?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think the window of acceptable discourse on campuses is so narrow, and it keeps shifting farther and farther left. Universities have, dozens of tools at their disposal to discourage speech that they don't like. I mean, you think about all these policies. I think of, frankly, being a student on campus today is like facing death by 1,000 cuts. Uh-huh. There are free speech zones. There are speaker fees. By the way,
we've got free speech zones. Should we also have free thought zones as well?
I mean, Texas Tech used to actually have a free speech gazebo, if you can believe it. Doesn't that sound beautiful?
Excuse me? What?
Yeah, a gazebo. And I think I grew up in America. I thought that America was a free speech zone, but apparently I was wrong. There's security fees are charged. Groups aren't recognized, so they can't have access to student fees. And so it's just all these little indignities. But the two that I think are the most insidious are speech codes that are worded very vaguely, where they might ban offensive language. Mm-hmm. Offensive it's in the eye of the beholder. That's like saying something is delicious. What works for me might not work for you, but it's not a constitutional scholar that's deciding that. It's a diversity officer who's deciding that. And we have very different interpretations, and that's not constitutional. And the other creepy program, I think, are these things called bias response teams, where students are actually encouraged to go to a web portal, usually in the university website, and anonymously report on their fellow classmates when somebody says something that they consider biased or hateful. I mean, that's East Germany in the 70s. That's creepy, and that undermines community.
You hit so many high points there. There's not enough time with this. Nicky Neily, this entire second hour has been based on the precepts of common sense, or the absence thereof, and this is what we're really dealing with, is the absence thereof. Let's talk about you've entered into 2 lawsuits. Am I correct on that?
Yes, we sued the University of Michigan in May, and then we sued the University of Texas in December.
Okay, the case in May, the first one.
Sure. The case in May, we sued the University of Michigan because they have those two policies that I mentioned, an overbroad, overvague speech code, and a bias response team. And
wait, hold on. A bias response team?
Mm-hmm.
Help me out. They respond. What's the response team do?
So if I were to file a report on the University of Michigan website reporting you for saying something that I found biased, you would get called in and you would have to explain yourself to the bias response team, which is a bunch of administrators. On some campuses, there's also campus police involved. And, you think, even if you're exonerated, even if at the end of the hearing they say, okay, well, that was nasty, but that was constitutionally protected, that's so scary, right? That's
wait. I'm just right. You've got to understand, here in North Carolina, you've got Duke and Carolina. And I can't imagine what it must be like if you have a Duke student that is a fan of UNC Chapel. Of course, they wouldn't live long, but a fan of the Tar Heels. That would be biased, wouldn't it? I can imagine. That's
a great point, is that these systems are weaponized, right? You can very easily file a false report against someone, and they still have to be dragged through an administrative hearing.
Okay.
So it's really creepy, and so it's a funny example, but I think you're dead on.
Okay, that's the University of Michigan case. The other one was Texas.
Yeah, University of Texas. Texas has those same two policies, and they also have an overbroad internet usage policy that governs all electronic communications on campus. It bans the communication of rude speech, and that provides for penalties up to and including expulsion. What is a rude correspondence? And so that's something else that's creepy.
Wait, hold on. Is this a real? Do you really have this job, Nikki? Are these really cases? Are you serious?
These are really cases, and so I have a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I look at the news every day, and I think, well, that's another college you're not going to. Well, that's another one you're not going to. And so
I'm sitting here. Seriously, they have. What is this issue at University of Texas on rudeness on the electronic rudeness on the internet?
Yeah, so they call it their acceptable use policy, so governing all electronic communications. You think through Wi-Fi, through your school email. How many people are friends and then have a falling out, and then you might have some email traffic back and forth. What you can forward that on and get them expelled? I mean, it's a bit much.
That's Nicky Neily with us this afternoon. Nicky, very quickly, Speech First, your organization. How do people get more information about you?
Sure. You can go to our website, which is speechfirst.org. So I encourage everyone to go check it out. We just got a website facelift. You can join for $5 and stay apprised of all our lawsuits. Hopefully we'll be filing a third one in April, so stay tuned. Speechfirst.org,
you said?
Yeah.
Speechfirst.org. Nikki, stay with me. I'm probably going to have you as a guest on our Y Factor on Thursday evenings. Do appreciate our guest joining us, Nicky Neily, Speech First, and that website, speechfirst.org. I can't believe this is serious. Stay with us for more here on the Talk Station.